Certified appraiser Elizabeth Stewart, Santa Barbara's treasure sleuth, will help you put a value on the treasures in your own home.
Every time it rains pennies from heaven. Don't you know each cloud contains pennies from heaven?
So let's find out.
Three,
how
two,
valuable is
one,
it?
you are live.
Hello, 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 Santa Barbara. It's your chantress of everything valuable and beautiful, Elizabeth Stewart. And across my desk, a wonderful email from the public relations department of the theater in Ojai, and announcing that Richard Camp, who is her artistic director at the Ojai Art Center Theater for 3 years, etc., and now he is AD for Joan Kemper's Ojai Performing Arts Theater. And he's written a play about him and his life. And that's Richard Camp. And I've always enjoyed speaking with Richard. And I had no idea about his past, except I did know that, you know, he was a 3-time Emmy nominee, writer, producer, and director. And he won the Emmy for writing the NBC series Hot Hero Sandwich. And he received a Writers Guild citation for CBS daytime drama Capital, which, gosh, I wonder if that has any relevance today. And he produced for the Food Network and a writer for ABC Network News, et cetera, et cetera. The credits go on. But, you know, this is a semi-autobiographical original comedy performed by Ojai Performing Arts Center Theater. And this is about Richard's life. It's a comedy about people who have been dealt the bottom card from the deck, but lived, thrived, and survived. So it starts out by announcing that Richard, up to the time he was about 5 years old, he thought everyone in the world was deformed in some way because everyone in my immediate family was. So the show is called Lordy Mercy. And I thought, okay, so last night I was looking, Richard, for appropriate music, and I put into the YouTube search, you know, white trash music, and I thought, okay, maybe that'll work. But I want to know what. Tell me about. Okay, this is what I want you to do. Set the scene for us. Describe the house in which you grew up.
Well, there were, first of all, hi and welcome, and good to see you again. I grew up in several houses because we moved around all the time. We were a very peripatetic family, and you know, sometimes it would just we had to move somewhere just because we couldn't afford to where we were living in the first place. So, see, I was born in North Carolina, but when we were 4, my stepfather moved us to Michigan, and I really grew up in Michigan, but it was an entirely southern enclave in Michigan because not only my family moved up there, but many of the relatives moved up there. They moved up there, and this was before the hippies, and they all shared a big house, and we just tried to get along as best we could. So, and as you said in the introduction, you know, up until I was about 5, you know, I thought everyone was had something wrong with them and needed some fixing, because they were. They were just. I can tell you all about those if you want. Yeah.
Definitely, I want to hear that, but I thought, you know, visually, you know, I got the sense that you lived in a Southern style big house with a bunch of people around you. There were relatives and friends that were also from the South. Where in North Carolina did you move from?
I was born in Gastonia, which is about almost exactly halfway between Asheville and Charlotte, near the southern
Okay.
border of with South Carolina.
Okay. And so I'm familiar with North Carolina. My son was at Duke, which is nothing like what you're talking about, but we did get a chance to tour around North Carolina. And yeah, it's a whole different, even the food is different. It's a
Oh,
whole different, yeah, whole
oh
different
yeah,
thing.
yeah. I think the tagline is you know, it's a Southern fried comedy, y'all. It's got, you know, broken relatives, broken religion, and grits. So that's the kind of story it's going to be. But it's it the concept basically is how all of these people who had these I hate to use the word deformities, but it was just, some people had some things wrong with them, but it didn't really bother them. Everybody was just family. And so it didn't matter, but it's how the stepping off point in the play is the 5-year-old, when he was 5 years old, goes to his first funeral. And that's where he encounters all of these people in one place. And it's really the beginning of the character's consciousness of the concept of God and how that fits into his entire worldview as he grows older and goes up to where I am now at a certain age.
Yes, and what was the concept of God?
Guess what?
What was the concept of God?
The absence of God? Yes.
No, what was the concept of God that sort of began your awakening?
Well, first of all, when you're 5 years old, you hardly know what God is.
Right.
So you're listening to I would go to the only churches I would go to were like Baptist churches. And so that was the overall view of God for me at the beginning. And so, a Baptist church is preaching to you that, have to be saved, you have to be born again, you have to accept Christ as your personal savior. All those words didn't quite make a lot of sense to me. And I was trying to put them all together and I'm trying to figure out how they fit into the people that I was growing up with and how they lived and got along.
So, Richard, you write that your concept of God began at a graveyard ceremony. Did that actually happen to you?
Oh yes, the first one of my mother's cousins, was the first person I knew in the family or anyway that passed away. And there's there's a comedic part in the play where, he didn't know what passed away meant. And so it's just a totally new concept to a 5-year-old. What does passed away meant? He didn't understand. So he tried to ask his stepdaddy, and his stepdaddy got all confused and discombobulated to find it. But anyway, he's at the funeral, and the funeral of the cousin whose name was Jim, but everybody called him Jimbo because he weighed somewhere near 400 pounds. And so he died because he was in the hospital having a minor operation and maybe to take out his gallbladder or his appendix. I didn't know what that was, or if it did take it out, would that leave him weighing 399 pounds? I didn't know. So I was just trying to figure all this stuff out. And it was just and so that initial first, funeral was to him beginning to learn what God meant and what happened to you after you die. Because later in the play, we get to the point where I deal with my cancer. I had cancer 2 years ago, and had to go through the treatment of that. And then I've combined all of those things and elements and put them together to an ending. So there we go.
So, so now do you actually have a 5-year-old performer, or is it how do you manage to get the voice of the 5-year-old into the play?
Well, I never lost my Southern accent if I wanted to. So when I started thinking about this, when I was 5, this is the way I talked when I was 5. So I got that into my thing. Um, Let me give you just a little excerpt from the beginning of the play.
Sure.
I was born in the Deep South, which is different from just plain old South. Deep South is like those documentaries you see about the dark depths of the ocean. The deeper you go, the scarier the creatures you bump into. But thank God or goodness or education, I managed to crawl out of the Deep South before I drowned in a moonshine bucket of dadgummits, dagnabbits, and dadburnets. Now, bear with me, because everything I'm going to tell you is the God's honest truth, except for the parts that ain't. Everybody in my worldview was deformed, but nobody ever used that word because, that's just too big a word for everybody. So if you didn't know the word and nobody had ever said it to you, then your worldview didn't even include the very idea of deformity, because nobody in my family or circle of friends thought they were deformed. They just thought they was normal. Except they didn't use that word either, because the idea of normal was never a question to somebody who didn't think anybody was abnormal. Now, You're most likely thinking I'm so dumb I can't put GPS in alphabetical order, but hang on. I'm going to tell you about all these folks. Some of them maimed, some of them lame, some of them about to fall off the deep end, some of them already treading water, some of them smart as a whip, some of them they had to get naked to count to 21.
Get naked to count to 21.
Yeah, yeah. If you got to get naked to count to 21, you can imagine that visual, huh?
Right, exactly. And what are you counting as you're as you're naked there?
Yeah, 10 fingers, 10 toes, then you got to add one.
Right, exactly. I get it. I get it, Richard. How cool. How interesting. So, when did you start writing the play, Lordy Mercy?
Well,
And what was the impetus behind it? The beginning of, what was the creative spark?
I was thinking about it for quite a few no, for years, and then during the pandemic, can't really do much of anything. You're stuck in your house. So I said, well, let's just make this a play. That's when I started writing it, during the pandemic. And I initially thought it should not be a one-person show. I thought about having all those characters be in it, but then I thought it'd be just too difficult to cast this play with that number of characters. So I just turned it into a one-man show, and I think it's worked out pretty well.
So tell me exactly. So the stepdaddy with the crossed eye, a Baptist church piano player with missing fingers, a cousin with a backward club foot, et cetera, et cetera. So these are the characters. Now tell me, are these real people? Are they really from your background, or how much is elaboration?
Absolutely, they're all real people. I would say about 90% of the play is real. Like the piano player, like you said, she was the piano player at a Baptist church, but she was missing two fingers on her left hand. So she would bang out the rhythm with her left hand and play the melody with the right hand, and good enough to make it work. And people would say, "Well, she's just so good on the piano because Jesus moves her hand for her." Well, that as a 5-year-old, that kind of made me kind of think, "Well, how can that be?" Because as far as I know, Jesus was dead, but then they never explained that to me. But really, her husband, he worked in a machine shop, and one day he got his hand caught in the machine and tore off 3 fingers on his right hand. And those two hands fit together like a glove. When they held hands, it was like one hand.
Oh, that's amazing. Amazing. Okay, so tell me about the cousin with the backward club foot.
Well, he was married to Jimbo's sister, and Jimbo's sister, she had her a cleft palate, so she couldn't talk right. So people could hardly understand her. And then her husband Glenn, he had a club foot. He could, and his right foot was turned around backwards. Now he could put a shoe and sock on, but as my stepdad said, he could kick your butt coming or going.
So let me get the visual right. So he had a club foot, but it was on backwards?
Yeah, yes.
How did he walk, Richard?
Oh, with a big old limp, and
Yeah.
everybody called him Gimpy because that's everybody had a nickname back then. I had another cousin who had a hunchback, and everybody called him Humpy. And then sometimes they call him Humpalong Cassidy, like the old movie cowboy Hopalong Cassidy. And
My goodness.
one of the points of the play is that they didn't mind being called that. They didn't feel embarrassed about it. It was just like something within the family. But only family could call him Humpy, and only family could call him Gimpy. But it was just kind of like a feeling of love. It wasn't. They weren't making fun of them. They were laughing with them. And that's one thing you have to that I learned and appreciated over the years.
And these people, what now? Okay, so tell me about your family right now. So now, obviously, that was many years ago,
Yeah.
but tell me about tell me about these people and
Well,
their relations now.
well, they're most of them are passed away. As a matter of fact, now I've learned what passed away meant, and that's what all of them are. My mom passed away, my stepdaddy passed away. the Gimp and Hump and everyone, they've all gone on to that stardust in the sky. This is another element of the play. Toward the end of the play, I irritated just about everybody I knew. I asked them, what do you think happens after you die? And so I got a lot of different responses, and so that kind of I worked that into the play too. What is God, and what does happen to you? Because my
So, so Richard, I asked you if you would bring us a few monologues from the play itself, and we've heard one already. Are you prepared to do another after the break?
Yes, sure. Okay.
Oh, excellent, excellent. And so just to reintroduce, this is Richard Camp, who has many, many credits to his name, but we know him from the artistic direction of the Ojai Art Center Theater. And now, as far as the Ojai Performing Arts Theater, we've got that. He's actually working with that theater as well. But not only that, I mean, Richard has been a playwright for years. Playwriting credits include Diamonds, directed by none other than Harold Prince in the Circle in the Square in New York. Bless Your Heart at the Ojai Art Center Theater that we covered actually on this program and was sold out for weeks. American Beauties at Princeton's McCarter's Theater. Cuckoo Bird, Richard wrote and directed at the Vortex Theater in New York. Waiting for Garbo at LA Colony Studio Theater. Credo at LA Odyssey Theater with Gene Smart. So, as we mentioned in the introduction, a three-time Emmy nominee and Emmy winner as well. And it always amazes me, Richard, the talent that you have in Ojai, you and your wife and the people that are in the performing arts in Ojai is astounding. It's astounding. It's a little gem of creative energy.
I agree.
Yeah. And so let's go to quick break. Richard Dugan, yeah, let's go to quick break. When we get back from the break, we are sampling little bits and pieces from Richard Kemp's new show that he wrote and actually stars in one-man show called Lordy Mercy. And we're finding out that Richard has way deep Southern roots. And these roots are the subject of the play, which is a laugh out loud comedy. Don't turn that down. Back in a minute.
All right, you are clear.
Richard, can you hear me on the microphone, or are you?
No, you're loud and clear right on the mic.
Okay, good.
It's when you were looking down and reading a question, I can't see your lips, and I read lips because I do have bad hearing.
Oh, okay. I'll be careful.
There you go.
And your mouth is just below the bottom line, and I can't see your mouth.
Well, that's really good that's really good information, Richard.
Yes, thank you.
Appreciate that. Yeah, no, I used to hear it from one of our former broadcasters here at the station many years ago. He's long since taken his leave from the station, and he used to give me a hard time. And I know it was in fun. I didn't take it seriously. He used to comment about how the radio station was being run by a blind man. Now, I was born and raised legally blind. I had a lens implant in '96, so now I can drive, but I only have vision in one eye. I lost the vision in my left eye due to glaucoma. So, but he would often say that. He said, with the radio station, we're letting the blind guy run the place, and it's like, okay, there you go. And I actually know of a couple of people in broadcasting over my career who were either legally or totally blind, and yet they were doing what they were doing in broadcasting. So I think it's actually phenomenal. Here you are, you're putting together these productions, and yet you have your own issues with being able to hear what's going on.
Yeah, I do have. I have a cochlear implant in one ear and a hearing aid in the other ear. And it's been that way for, the hearing aids have been there for over 50 years. The cochlear has been 5 years now. So,
you wait long enough and they'll be able to replace the whole dang thing, or maybe even they'll be able to replace our entire head the way AI is going.
Well, it's interesting because Richard Dugan, because of, like you said, his childhood, Legally Blind, he just is so orally attuned. You know, he just, and that's why he's so good at radio. But Richard, over the years, I've known him almost 20 years now, but over the years, you know, he can do any accent, any voice. He can hear nuances in music. You know, he's not classically trained, but he can
No,
certainly hear
yeah,
nuances in music. And, you know, it's because he had to rely on other senses,
yeah.
yeah, to
Uh,
get him, you know, where he is today.
Well, we are
So
where we are today right now is coming back from a break, and it's coming back to you, Elizabeth, in three, two, one. You're live.
welcome back. I'm talking to Richard Camp, who I've had on the program a number of times as artistic director of Ojai Art Center Theater, and he is affiliated now with Ojai Performing Arts Theater. And he has written a play for Ojai Performing Arts Theater called Lordy Mercy, and it's about growing up in the Deep South, which he did, and about some of the characters in his life. And I guess what makes it funny is and poignant, I'm learning, is that the people that he was growing up around all had different kind of interesting foibles. As Richard says in the play, they were deformed in some way. And that now we learn also that Richard himself has had an issue with his hearing over the years. And Richard Dugan, our producer, mentioned, isn't that amazing that, you know, Richard has gone into the word in his career, you know, as a person who has hearing issues, he is so focused on the word, both as a writer and a producer and a director and an Emmy Award winning writer on top of it. So it's interesting how that happens in somebody's life. I wonder, is that kind of a subplot in the play, Richard, that these so-called deformities actually are somehow a blessing?
Well, that's interesting to say, and you use the word foibles too. I like that word; it's better. Not so much a blessing, but it's something that you can learn from. Um, and when I was thinking about doing the play, I did not want in any way, shape, or form to indicate that I was making fun of these people. I think I mentioned this earlier. It's the people you love. So at the beginning of the play, I do tell everyone in the play that I do have a hearing problem. I've had it for quite a while. And it makes me, I think, part of that tribe too, because they don't want to talk about them unless you have some kind of something, a foible yourself. And so that's my foible. And then later on, near the end of the play, I discussed the fact that 2 years ago, I came down with colon cancer. And it was interesting that my treatment was going into 3 stages. It was radiation, chemo, and then an operation. So I went through 6 weeks of daily radiation and 4.5 months of chemo. And then I went in and talked to the surgeon, ostensibly to find out the date for my surgery. But he explored around down there and he came out and he said, "Well, I cannot do your surgery." And I said, "Why?" And he said, "Because the tumor is gone." The radiation and the chemo just wiped it out, which was, talk about a blessing. That was the blessing. But before this happened, this is the fun. This is the funny part. I have, you know, when you can communicate with your doctor through a patient portal, and the patient portal that I had was through UCLA, which did all my cancer treatment and surgeries. I also had a patient portal through my regular GP. So when I had my first MRI, the surgeon looked at the results and he emailed my GP and he said, "This patient's tumor is big and ugly." Now, I don't think I was supposed to see that email. It kind of depressed me a little bit. I was hoping for, you know, small and cute, but I got the Godzilla of tumors. So basically what happened was, true to my family tradition, even my tumor was deformed.
Oh, Lord, Richard. Well, thank goodness. I mean, that it turned out the way it did. It's
Yeah,
oh,
indeed.
yeah. So, you've got another monologue that you've prepared for us. Can you set the stage, as it were?
Yeah, this is toward the end of the play, and um, you after I've talked about all these people for quite some time, and then we get to the penultimate. So we're talking about how these people have influenced my life and what is happening and what I did with my life. So I'll just start here.
Okay.
It's been a long time since Jimbo's funeral started me down that twisted road of unanswered questions. I grew up, went to college, read the philosophers, got depressed, studied religions, got more depressed. Every one of them claimed to be the one true way. Every one of them claimed the world was created by an unseen God and an unseen presence, and that world was created from nothing. And when the killer question for believers comes around, who made God? Well, they don't have an answer, just have to follow God's plan. Like that girl on Instagram posted, I've been in 8 car crashes. Don't tell me God don't have a plan for me. And I said, yeah, girl, he's trying to kill you. I studied science too. The most productive and brilliant minds ever to live proposed that the Earth sprang into existence about 13.8 billion years ago when a cataclysmic colliding of energy, protons, neutrons, electrons created a big bang, and that this explosive diffusion of matter is still hurtling out exponentially to the far reaches of the universe. And where did that small piece of energy come from? From nothing, they say with a completely straight face. So, science and religion do agree on something, that everything comes from nothing, which of course makes no sense whatever, but here we are. On the other hand, in Shakespeare's time, nothing was a euphemism for a woman's vagina. So in that sense, we do all come from nothing.
Oh, that's amazing. That's amazing. So tell me about your stepdad,
About what?
your stepdaddy.
Well, my stepdaddy, he was basically an alcoholic. Um, he was hit in the eye with a rock when he was a youngin', and he had his right eye was permanently crossed. So when he was standing and looking at me and yelling at me, which was pretty much all the time, his left eye would be looking at me, but his right eye would be looking over somewhere to my right. And I kept looking over there and say, "Who else you yelling at?" And that really just made him real mad. And he was a truck driver, so he took off his belt to give me a little belt therapy. And this wasn't a regular belt. He was a mother trucker with a buckle belt, and that buckle was the size of a canned ham. And it also had the word Elvis raised in metal letters on the buckle, Elvis. And when he would whoop me, he wouldn't use the belt part. He'd use the buckle part. So I basically had Elvis burnished into my butt all through puberty.
That's amazing. And so okay, so then tell me about your mom.
Oh, my mom, she tried and she defended me at all levels. There was one time when my stepdaddy said, come in, and he said he wanted me to drop out of school. Now, I was valedictorian of my high school class, and one day he caught tuberculosis, and he was in the sanatorium. So we went to visit him, and I said, I'm a valedictorian, and he said, no, you're not. You're a Baptist. So. So he was he kept trying that kind of stuff. But anyway, one day before that happened, he come in and he said, I want you to drop out of school and get a job. And I forgot what I exactly said, but it was something like, "Are you freaking crazy?" So
Yeah.
he started to take off his belt, and my mom come in, and this is the first time I ever saw her do this. She came in and she said, "Don't you touch him. He is not gonna drop out of school." And there was something so mama bear about the way she said that my stepdaddy just slinked away and he never mentioned it again. And bless my mama's heart for that.
That's amazing. So did you grow up with brothers and sisters?
I have one full brother and 2 half brothers. Um, and my full brother dropped out of high school and went to Vietnam and kind of had PTSD, and he was gone from the world after that. I don't talk about it in my play, but that's what happened. I do have another half brother. He was he was at a party one day. He had a girlfriend named Loretta, and Loretta was um, some other guy started hitting on Loretta, and my half brother decided to defend Loretta's honor, which I didn't think it needed to because she was tough as year-old beef jerky. But but anyway, he got my half brother got his eye stabbed out, and he got stabbed in the gut too. So I had to take care of him and take care of those, and he had him a glass eye. So I thought, well, that's just really weird because how weird is it that your stepfather with one eye has winds up having a son with one eye? That's kind of taking the eye for eye thing a little bit too far. So
Richard.
he got used to it, and he got every once in a while. But he had a buddy, and that buddy used to play tricks on new people all the time. Whenever they met a new person, the buddy would say, "Hey, Lonnie, can you keep an eye out for me?" And he would. He'd take out the eye, and that scared the bejesus out of him. So everybody just tried to cope with their foibles in kind of a funny way, an interesting way, because sometimes you can't just disappear into a vat of despair. As far as I'm concerned, you work with those things, and you just try to be as happy as you can.
And may I ask your real father, what happened to him?
Oh, Lordy mercy. This is beginning to sound like a Dickens story. My real dad, my real daddy. The only thing I remember about him when I was about 4, I come in from playing marbles and I saw him beating on my mom till she was bleeding. And so I took that marble. It was a big old steely. It was about the size of Lonnie's eye. And I threw right at him and hit him right in the gonads. Well, and he started cussing up a blue streak. And, he had a belt thing too. He was about to take off his belt, but my mom got a broom and she started beating on him with a broom. And she go, "Get on out of here, get on out of here." And so he run out of there. And then I got a wash rag and tried to wipe the blood off my mom's face, and I did. We helped, and she was real quiet. And what she did was she went over and got some milk and some lard and some flour, and she started making some biscuits because every southerner will tell you that you can just get through just about anything with some biscuits. And she made these biscuits. Oh God, they were good. I mean, they were fluffy and warm on the inside, about 2 inches high, and they had a golden crust on the top because she put butter on. So we filled those with butter and jelly, and we ate those biscuits. And she said, "He ran out of here with his tail between his legs, didn't he?" And that started me laughing, and it started her laughing, and we just laughed and laughed and laughed. And then she just hugged me, put me down, picked up the broom and started sweeping the floor, except I didn't see anything on the floor that needed sweeping. I never saw my daddy again.
What a beautiful story.
Yeah.
Well, it's a beautiful story. Richard Dugan, we should go to a quick break and maybe, and Richard Camp, do you have one more monologue for us?
Oh, sure. Just twist my arm.
I know. This is great. Richard Dugan and I are just, I mean, it's radio, so dear listener, you can't see, but Richard and I are just cutting up and trying not to laugh and interrupt the beautiful words and the funny words in the play. And this reintroducing Lordy Mercy at Ojai Performing Arts Theater, a world premiere by Richard Camp about his life. And what a life we're learning, huh? Richard, what a life. Okay, don't turn that down. Back in a minute.
All right, we're clear. Well, Richard, I've got a good joke for you as far as my what I shared with you earlier about my early years with legal blindness. I was born and raised in Phoenix, Arizona.
Huh?
So I came up with this little joke to tell people that I was born legally blind in Phoenix, Arizona. Do you know what that makes me? It makes me a Phoenician blind.
Uh-huh. I didn't hear it. Say it again.
I said it makes me a Phoenician blind. Uh,
Good
what?
one.
Yeah, and another one. It's not so much of a joke per se, but I always looked at my vision in the context, and even to this day, even though I now have 20/80 in my right eye with corrective lenses here, um, I still look at whatever quote unquote limitation I have as a perceived limitation. It's only a limitation if I allow it to be. But I got to tell you, by the way, which one of your siblings or you played Tiny Tim in the annual presentation of A Christmas Carol as you were growing up? Because it sounds like any one of you could have with what you went through. My goodness.
No, we didn't. We didn't do that. I don't care when I was young.
Oh, my goodness. My goodness. And the amazing thing is that you came out the other side to produce the things that you now present to the general public, and obviously have appearances such as this to share your story. I just think these kinds of things are just remarkable. You know, you and I probably would agree that we really it was just our life. Other
Yeah.
people that look in on our lives, they go, "Wow, that's amazing."
Yeah.
Oh, and I say, okay, it was amazing.
Yes. Yeah. Well, sometimes you tell them that when they say it's amazing, well, I kind of react by saying, well, it kind of amazing in one way, but not in another way. You just have to deal with what you have.
Exactly. Well,
Sometimes,
Elizabeth, I need you back in the chair here because we're about to come back here. I got about 60 seconds before we got nothing. So I see you're there getting your tea together.
okay, I mean, I'm going to find the next thing I'm going to do. So give
Yeah,
me
please do. Go ahead. Go ahead there. All right, Elizabeth. All right, here we go. In three, two, one, you are live.
Welcome back. Celebrating Richard Camp's world premiere of a play, autobiographical play about his life growing up in a interesting way, very interesting way in the Deep South amongst many people that we would consider, I don't know, full of life's foibles, I guess.
I like that word,
Uh,
foibles. That was a good one.
yes.
You wrote
And
that.
now Richard's he's read us a little bit of the play and done a little bit because it's a one-man show. So I asked him to do another monologue. So Richard, can you set the stage?
Sure. This is this scene is kind of later in life, later in the play. I mean, when we've gone through all of these foibles, and the character whose name is Richard, comes to this idea, to the conclusion that that what these people were, um, are did not consider themselves to have foibles. They were just this was just the way they were. We talked about it with Richard during the break. So yeah. So now here we go. Now, as the years went on, a minor miracle took place. I lost my southern accent, which evidently upped my IQ by 20 points. Seriously, when people hear a southern accent, all they can see are albino banjo players in the Georgia backwoods eating Cracker Barrel pickles. Even though some experts claim that the Appalachian dialect is closest to the way people sounded in Shakespeare's time. Now, how they know this is beyond me, but I've yet to hear a production of Hamlet where he says, to be or not to be, that is the question. Or how about if you heard, Macbeth, 'tis the tale told full of sound and fury, told by an idiot, signifying nothing. It doesn't have quite that national theater feel to it, does it? No.
No.
Now, as I grew, I figured out that not everybody in the world was deformed. Most people had 10 fingers and 10 toes and lived their lives without having to count with them. What I do remember most about the family is that nobody made a big deal out of this. Fat man, hunchback, cleft palate, finger missing, foot missing, cross-eyed, crushed up, screwed up, family had it all. but they just went on about their business like God made them that way, and that was their lot in life. And they all took care of each other. That they laughed at one another, laughed with one another, and didn't try hard to make sense of the world. Wasn't their place. They were content to be in their tribe, tempered, of course, by the fear of going outside their tribe where people would make fun of them. They stuck to themselves, afraid to test the nonchalant cruelty of the world. Laughter may be the best medicine, but man, the side effects is what'll kill you.
Beautiful.
Thank you.
Hysterical, Richard. Richard Dugan's got his mute on, but he's laughing. He's killing himself.
That's a
That's
great
interesting.
line. That's a
It's a
side
great-
effects that'll kill you.
Well, I hope you guys can come and see the show. That'd be fun. Both of
Well,
you.
that's another thing. That's another thing I wanted to ask you. Can you tell us details? How do we get tickets?
Okay,
Et cetera. Yep.
it's just going to play just three days only, February 21st, 22nd, and 23rd. It is at the Ojai Arts Center, but it's the OPAT production. We are renting the Arts Center for this because, as you may well probably remember, OPAT doesn't really have a home or a brick and mortar theater. We've been using the Matilla Hub, we've been using other places, but we are at the Arts Center. You can get tickets through ohaitheater.org. And you just go to that website and you can pick up your tickets for the Friday night and Saturday night at 7:30 and Sunday matinee at 2 o'clock.
And tell me about the mint juleps.
Oh, the Mint Julep, on Saturday night, we're having a VIP party for our VIP participants. After the show on Saturday night, we're having a big party and we're having mint juleps and we're going to have some grits and maybe some black-eyed peas and collard greens. Just a wonderful, black tie. It's not black tie. It's just a wonderful party for the VIPs. But we'll have some mint juleps there. But before the show, we're going to have some sweet tea. Everybody coming going to have sweet tea because you can't go anywhere in the South without some sweet tea.
Without what now?
Sweet tea.
Sweet tea.
Sweet tea.
Yeah.
Ah.
Tea. I mean, everyone in the house, you're born, and the first thing they give you tea, though, sweet tea. You just gotta have that. And of course, just as the name sounds, it's sweet. We got some sugar in that, and it's just it's the rock star. What is that drink that you call rock star that gives you the caffeine energy or one of those things? But
Yeah,
it's sweet
yeah.
tea. That's out. Nothing but sweet tea.
Mm.
So we'll have some sweet tea before the show, and then only on Saturday night for the VI party we'll have the mint juleps.
How much fun is that? That's fantastic. And so, Richard Dugan, do you have a question for Richard Camp?
Well, I'm just curious as to when this production is done. What's on the horizon for you? I mean, you've done an awful lot in your career, but I know this isn't the last presentation and production that you're putting together. What's on the horizon?
Okay, when we finish this, OPAT is planning, and I'm planning to do a production of Hair.
Really?
The American tribal love rock musical, but I am casting the show with people over 50. And so the premise is that all the cast have done hair in their previous life when they were young people, and they're doing hair again to really experience and wonder, do the values that were presented in that show 50 years ago, are they still viable? And spoiler alert, I think they are. Yes. Yeah, peace, love, and happiness. So I think it's going to be an interesting show. When I first announced the fact that we're doing this, I've ever experienced so many people coming in and say, "Oh, when are auditions? I want to be in this," and they're all over 50. And so a lot of people come in with kind of the hair experience. They don't have any more hair, and it's I was going to say that, but you can do that, yes.
Now, if I've never seen it, but I have heard there is nudity in the play Hair as it was performed many years ago and even to this day. Is that going to be part of your production, or is it going to be more PG?
You know, this is the first question I am asked when I we're gonna do hair. What about the nude scene? Well, I've seen Hair several times. I directed and starred in Hair as my senior thesis in college, for one thing, and I've seen it in Munich and I've seen it in Paris. But the nude scene in Hair lasts all of 30 seconds. It's at the end of Act One. And they just stand there nude. I have a very, very unique way of doing that so that it will be kind of PG, but it will be, you will see something too. Actually, what it is, we've got it covered.
A good line. We've got it covered.
And so is the show cast already, Richard?
Oh no, we have not had auditions yet. So we're I've been kind of busy with Lordy Mercy, but after Lordy Mercy, we'll try to put that together and start having auditions and get going on that. And we're going to try to get Andy's Treat, our wonderful musical director, who was director of Into the Woods and the Fantastics and most of all the musicals that we've done in the past through OPAT. So it's going to be a fun show, very fun.
Okay, and then give us one more shout out. So it's the Lordy Mercy world premiere, all about your life and growing up in the Deep South. The 21st, the 22nd, and the 23rd at the Ojai Arts Center Theater. And we're going to get tickets. Tell us again where we get tickets.
Tickets can be, you can get your tickets through ojaitheater.org. OJAITHEATER.org.
Okay. And thank you, Richard, very much for coming today and talking to us about the show. And just one final question. When you start a play like this, does I mean, it must take your total attention, but how long did you work on the show? How long did you write?
Oh, well, I wrote mostly all through the pandemic, and as a matter of fact, I'm still rewriting. And as a matter of fact, on February 21st, 5 minutes before the show starts, I'll probably be doing a little bit of rewriting then too. It's a constant thing.
And do you see this actually being performed by any other performer, or is this just going to be you, or is it going to go out to the general public?
It's so specific to me, but
Yeah.
I do think it can be performed by another performer. And in fact, we've talked about that and talked about a couple of celebrities possibly have taken over, possibly moving the show to somewhere else. So we're working on that. We have a director actually, Asfa Olsen. She is the director at the Alcazar Theater in Carpinteria. So, you know, there's kind of a symbiotic thing going on there. So, yeah, we're talking about it. Yeah.
So do you have a disclaimer at the end that says, and the names have been changed to convict the guilty and protect the innocent?
Absolutely.
Hey, it's been a great pleasure.
Yes. Here we go.
Okay, well, thank you, Richard, and thank you, Richard Dugan, for helping me through this. And Richard Camp, just congratulations. And yes, I want to come on Saturday. I want some mint juleps. That's fantastic. And thank you for being with us today. I appreciate it.
Yeah, this has been a lot of fun. Thank you both for having me.
Bye now.
You're clear. You are clear. Fantastic. Wonderful.
Okay.
All right. Well, have yourself a wonderful time. I don't know that I'm going to be able to make it. I'd love to bring my wife. I'll touch base with Elizabeth in that regard. And thank you for being on the program.
Okay.
Thank you, Richard. I'll send you a link and then you can use this however you want it.
Okay.
There you
Thanks.
go.
Bye,
Bye-bye.
Richard.
Bye.